From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Tuesday, August 21st, 2018. Silver is trading at $14.73 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,190 per ounce. Zencash is trading at $20, and the average price of Bitcoin is $6,439. Antiwar.com reports that speaking on the 65th anniversary of the 1953 CIA coup against Iran, the Iranian foreign minister accused the newly established Iran Action Group of being an attempt by the U.S. government to repeat the coup, but that it will fail. The State Department announced the establishment of the Iran Action Group last week, with Brian Hook appointed to lead it as a special representative for Iran. Exactly what the group will be doing is not entirely clear. The State Department did try to present Hook's responsibility as coordinating all anti-Iran activities within the department, however, which suggests that it's reasonable for Iran to conclude the goal is regime change, despite some Trump administration officials denying that they are seeking regime change. Iran's foreign minister says U.S. attempts at regime change will come through pressure, misinformation, and demagoguery. The U.S. has been fairly open about spreading misinformation about Iran and trying to organize protest against the government, and in recent weeks has presented those protests as proof the Iranian government needs to make radical changes. Zencash is an end-to-end encrypted system with zero-knowledge technology over which communications, data, or value can be securely transmitted and stored. With both secure nodes and supernodes, Zencash recently surpassed 17,000 nodes, which means Zencash has one of the largest node systems of any cryptocurrency. Supernodes will advance the decentralization of the Zencash network and ensure the utility not only of Zencash as a currency, but also the future services that will be layered in the infrastructure. Learn more at zencash.com. UPI reports a Michigan judge on Monday ordered the state's health director to stand trial on involuntary manslaughter charges over 2 deaths linked to a water crisis in Flint. Nick Lyon, the highest-ranking state official to face charges related to the city's tainted water supply, which was not properly treated when officials decided to draw from the Flint River in April 2014, switching from its previous source of Lake Huron. In addition to causing lead poisoning in children, the improperly treated water supply led to an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Flint, killing Robert Skidmore and John Snyder. Lyon was charged in June 2017 for the 2 deaths, as well as a felony count of misconduct in office. The charging document said Lyon showed gross negligence when he did not alert the public about the Legionnaire's outbreak until a year after he became aware of it. The document says he took steps to suppress information illustrating obvious and apparent harms that were likely to result in serious injury. Defendant Lyon willfully disregarded the deadly nature of the Legionnaire's disease outbreak. Prosecutors say Lyon instructed an official to stop an analysis that would have helped determine the crisis's cause. On Monday, when ordering the trial, 67th District Court Judge David Goggins said, "I find this behavior corrupt." Lyon could face 15 years in prison if convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The misconduct charge carries a possible 5-year sentence. Governor Rick Snyder named Lyon to the position on April 10th, 2015, when he created a new agency that merged the Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Department of Community Health. Lyon had led the latter department. He is one of 15 current and former city and state officials facing charges for criminal wrongdoing in the Flint water scandal. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. You can join the Fans program for as little as $1 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. Reuters reports Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar said that it is within his agency's power to eliminate rebates on prescription drug purchases, a key element of the Trump administration's plan to lower prescription medicine costs. Such rebates are negotiated in the United States by pharmacy benefit managers to lower cost of medicines for their clients, which include large employers and health plans that cover tens of millions of Americans. Drug makers say they are under pressure to provide rebates to the few pharmacy benefit managers that dominate the market, which include CVS, Express Scripts, and United Health's Optum, and that those payers do not pass on enough of the savings to patients, a contention the pharmacy benefit managers dispute. The drug makers say the rebates force them to raise the price on their therapies over time to preserve their business. The Trump administration has been receptive to that argument. Azar, in an interview with Reuters on Friday, said rebates create a perverse incentive to continuously raise drug prices. This has been FPP Radio News. Online at fppradio.com.
Radio. It's nothing new. It's been here all along, with free entertainment, news, sports, music, and information. It's not just part of life, it's part of who we are. You know which station is going to tell you the score of the game, which one's going to give you a laugh in the morning, which one is going to give you something to sing along with. You know where to turn when the weather gets rough. When something big happens, good or bad, you know where to go because radio has been here all along. Radio is part of your community, woven into the fabric of what makes home, home. And now, radio has evolved to move with you with the Next Radio app and your FM-enabled phone. Just plug in your headphones to start experiencing radio in a whole new way while using way less battery and data than streaming apps. Check out the live guide to see and interact with live radio stations. Easily find your favorites like the one you're listening to right now. And as always, it's totally free. Download the Next Radio app today. Next Radio, live and local wherever you go.
We have in the field, we have Kent Casson, farmer, farm broadcaster, Victoria Klajewski, Growmark, plant and insect specialist, insect and plant disease specialist. I think that's the right title.
Okay.
Jessica Hurtis down in the 618, talking about a great leaf spot in southern Illinois, and also talking about harvest right around the corner. And a crop watcher. We got a crop watcher, too.
Plus, if we had a little east, we're going to check in with the folks at The Equity / Effingham Equity. Darwin Woltman is their vice president of feed and livestock. They're going to be celebrating a feed mill open house on Wednesday, so we'll get some details there.
Fantastic.
I'd say, if it was just me, I'd say we cover the state.
That sounds pretty good. That's the goal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's a good goal to have.
I think so.
And what better state to cover when you're talking about agriculture than right here in Illinois?
I agree.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
We should do more of that.
Right. We have some Bureau County field day information to share later today, and I know heading into later in the week, we're going to have maybe some candidates ahead of the big November election on.
That's right. You going to Bureau County? You give me some chips? Give me some chips from Kramer's? Get Lauren Lurkins. Get Lauren Lurkins on the phone.
Okay.
Get her up.
We'll get her.
I'm going to need some chips.
When you get her on a job, the job is done.
That's right. Done.
That's right. We'll have that, weather, and markets coming your way. Stay with us.
With this week's edition of Farm Week, the early word, here's DeLaw Schonke.
Illinois farmers captured the attention of two federal agricultural leaders during Ag Day festivities at the Illinois State Fair. Turn to Farm Week to find out what Farm Service Agency Administrator Richard Fordyce and Risk Management Agency Administrator Martin Barbry shared with farmers about a new $12 billion farm relief program and new dairy revenue protection insurance. Farmland values haven't lost much ground despite negative pressure. Learn more about information contained in the latest Federal Reserve Banks of Chicago and St. Louis Ag Surveys in this week's Farm Week.
No other farm weekly in Illinois has as many people on the ground in Illinois covering Illinois agriculture for you with the depth on key issues to help keep you profitable. And don't forget, you can get daily or even more frequent updates online anytime at farmweeknow.com.
Welcome back to RFD Illinois. I'm DeLaw Schonke. The latest numbers from Illinois Ag Statistics. Last week's average temperature was 75.4 degrees statewide, 1.4 degrees more than average. Precipitation at 1 inch 16 was 0.3 of an inch more than average. 6 of the 9 reporting districts came in at least an inch. The other 3 came in around 3/4 of an inch or more. Growing degree days since May 1, now at 2,582 for a statewide average, is 310 more than average. It's certainly one of the reasons why we have such a quickly developing crop this year. In fact, our Farm Week crop watcher in Macon County, Tom Ritter, says right around Labor Day we'll see a whole lot of harvest activity in his part of the state.
For the most part, I think our crop is made on corn and soybeans. Corn, most farmers are talking probably Tuesday after Labor Day. And I'm sure there'll be a little corn picked the week before that. We've had a tremendous change almost over the weekend in the appearance of the crop as it's starting to brown and the shucks are pulling away from the ear, maybe not dropping down yet, but definitely maturing, moving on. Our elevators are busy moving what's left of last year's corn that has not been sold into ground piles to be covered, just to improve their efficiency of taking the crop when harvest gets rolling, especially a month from now.
Tom Ritter in Macon County. You can follow him and the other crop watchers in each week's edition of Farm Week. 63% of corn is in the dent stage. 5-year average is 36%. Soybean setting pods at 95%, ahead of the 5-year average of 86. Turning color is 3%. Sorghum headed at 88%, turning color at 62. And mature at 25, ahead of the 5-year average at 4%. 79% of alfalfa has had its third cutting. 5-year average is 64. Jessica Hurtis is Asgrow DeKalb agronomist in southern Illinois. Weed control is hard enough, but there are also a lot of cases of volunteer corn this year in soybean fields. She encourages farmers to make harvest plans already.
Prioritizing our harvest might be something to keep in mind even leading up to harvest, outside of getting into that combine and starting to shell some corn and cut some beans. We definitely want to pay attention to our stock conditions, standability of the crop, go out and push on some stalks and just see where that turgor is, how much intactness is left, and definitely maturity. So sub 114s really dry down well, and we don't want to be in the field when it's less than 18% moisture, because we're absolutely going to lose some yield due to just this harvest loss. So prioritizing that and making sure our ears are intact, we're not going to drop ears, we're not going to lose it through the combine is key. With these projections on yield, we've got to protect every bushel that we have out there.
Jessica Hurtis in southern Illinois, and Kent Cassens, a farmer and farm broadcaster in McLean and Livingston counties.
Thankfully, we received some much-needed rainfall late last week across our farms. Amounts from Thursday night into Friday range from around a half inch at my place southwest of Fairbury in Livingston County to around 1 inch 10 miles west of McLean County. That should definitely help the later soybean varieties, even though it's much too late for the corn to benefit. We enjoyed the local Fairbury Fair last week, which included 5 days of livestock shows, carnival rides, and plenty of entertainment. Our kids even brought home some blue ribbons. Now that the fair is over, it's back to school for the kids and back to harvest preparations for the adults. And our schedule is full of seed meetings and dinners this week. I wouldn't be surprised if some neighboring farmers with earlier corn will be out harvesting in the next week or so. I think the busy harvest season around here is still at least a couple of weeks away. Reporting from southeastern Livingston County for the RFD Radio Network, I'm Kent Cassen.
Just a couple of national numbers in here according to Ag Statistics. 85% of corn is in the dough stage, ahead of the average of 72%. 44% of the crop is dented. 5-year average is 26. Corn condition is now 68% good to excellent. Last week we were at 70. A year ago this time we were at 62. Soybean setting pods is 91% ahead of the 5-year average of 83. 65% of soybeans is now rated good to excellent, another 1 percentage point drop from the week before. And China has reported a third case of African swine fever, investigating whether the 3 instances have any connection. The first outbreak led to the culling of more than 8,000 head. Significant hog slaughter could also hurt demand for corn and soybean meal. Rita's up next on a Tuesday edition of RFD Illinois.
Corn. Thanks to Illinois corn farmers, you can see it just about everywhere here in the land of Lincoln. What you may not know is the unexpected places you can find corn, like your gas tank. 97% of all fuel sold in the U.S. is a 10% ethanol blend. And here in Illinois, we're a top producer of ethanol. Not only does it drive your car, it drives our economy. Be sure to proudly choose an ethanol blend at the pump the next time you fill up. Illinois runs on homegrown corn and Illinois-made ethanol. Visit ilcorn.org to find out more. A message from Illinois corn farmers and their checkoff.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food.
We're back on RFD Illinois. I'm Rita Frazier. The ethanol industry charges EPA is showing no willingness yet to account for small oil refinery exemptions in the proposed 2019 renewable fuel standard volumes. RFD Washington correspondent Matt Kay reports.
The Renewable Fuels Association says EPA's own records show the agency deleted provisions that would have reallocated projected small refiner exemptions. RFA's Jeff Cooper.
In their own documents, in their own deliberative process and drafting of this rule, they show that they can, and not only can they do this, that they should do it in order to observe the spirit and intent of the law.
RFA tells EPA in written comments the ethanol industry's greatly concerned more exemptions abuse will make a statutory 15 billion gallons of conventional ethanol use proposed next year meaningless.
So we now have an opportunity to argue that you should do what you had maybe planned on doing at one point in this process.
Cooper's group says it doesn't consider the ethanol volumes in the proposed rule authentic unless the rule accounts for projected exemptions. Otherwise, actual required blending volumes won't be met.
What we've been demonstrating to the White House, I think, is that these actions that former Administrator Pruitt was taking are inflicting real harm and real pain on an important block of voters in the Midwest.
Some estimates put RFS ethanol volume losses this year at over 2 million gallons, with the D.C. Circuit Court also finding 500 million gallons missing from the EPA's 2016 RFS due to refinery waivers. For the RFD Radio Network, Matt Kay, Washington.
Thanks, Matt. Well, coming up this week, in fact, tomorrow, an open house at the Equity for a new state-of-the-art Horace feed mill. The event is free and open to the public, members of the surrounding communities, farmers, and anyone with an interest in learning more about the feed milling process and connection to pork production. Welcome to attend. We found out more about what's going on there as we spoke yesterday with the Vice President of Feed and Livestock for the Equity, Darwin Woltman. Tell us a little bit, Darwin, about that title and about working with this company for the last 3 decades.
Well, I've been fortunate to stay in one place my entire career. The company's went through a lot of changes, and as we continue to diversify our offerings, we wanted to expand our footprint, and Horace was just a good fit for us. It got us into a market for grain. Hopefully we can lead into it with other departments, and it will also allow us to focus on other things at our Effingham facility, take some of the pressure off of it, and Horace can do a lot of heavy lifting for us.
Now, and you talk about that part of the state. We mentioned your open house coming up this week. What a great opportunity for conversation about just this and really the economic contributions that agriculture makes to rural Illinois.
Correct. Some of the things that I could talk about as well is, it took, for example, over 6,000 yards of concrete to build the facility. We've invested in a lot of rock. We've employed people from the area. To me, I think it's just a great economic boost for Edgar County.
When did plans start, and why was it necessary?
Well, plans start, as you well know, the expansion of the packing industry in both the Eastern Corn Belt and the Western Corn Belt. The need for more facilities and also feed milling capacity led us to where we're at today. We wanted to get away from Effingham a little bit. The space down here is getting a little crowded. And so we were able to secure the location up there, and like I said earlier, it's just a good place, low numbers of livestock and people for that matter, a good place to put some more hogs.
So you're inviting the public, those in that area, maybe give us a quick directions, and what's the time slot for Wednesday?
So we'll kick off at noon. We're having a meal. It'll be a pork sandwich, drinks and cookies, that sort of thing. And then we'll have the ceremonies kick off about 1 o'clock. We'll have a few people speaking. We have some political figures there, some company people speaking, and then, of course, we'll have some people speaking on behalf of the Corn Grower Soybean Animal Coalition, and we'll have the official ribbon cutting between 1:15 to 1:30, and then we will give tours of the new feed mill after that.
You can't miss it as far as directions go?
No, you would just go north of Paris to the Brockton Road on Route 1 and go west a mile. When you get across the railroad tracks, we're right there. You can't miss us.
And when you talk about, the growth in the livestock industry, especially in that part of the state, you being a livestock kid coming from a farm in the Effingham County area, it feels pretty great that in 2018 it's a thriving industry.
Yeah, it sure is. And as I mentioned earlier, with the extra packing capacity that we have, we feel like it's our responsibility to spread out the livestock, spread out the pigs, not concentrate in one area. And there's a lot of open space up there, and we want to do our part, be judicious about where we put the facilities. A lot of corn up there. We can turn a lot of the corn in Edgar and surrounding areas, Edgar County and surrounding areas, into livestock feed and be an end user in that regard, and create another market for the farmer's corn up there.
Yeah, and boy, couldn't come at a better time, right, Darwin, as far as where the grain prices are and this market overall.
Sure thing. The whole ag commodities seem to be in a trough, and they could use all the help they can get, and creating new demand, new markets. There's always room for that everywhere.
Darwin Woltman with The Equity, Vice President of Feed and Livestock. That open house for that new state-of-the-art feed mill is this Wednesday, tomorrow, 12 to 3 in Chrisman. Let's break for markets and weather.
With the RFD Ag Market Summary for this Tuesday morning, I'm Jim Taylor. Corn slightly lower, beans slightly higher, and wheat ending Monday double-digit lower. September corn 362 down 2 1/4. December corn down 2 1/4, 376 1/2. March corn 388 1/2 down 2 1/4. September beans closing at 881 3/4, up 1/4. November beans up 1/2, 893 1/4. January beans 905 3/4, up 3/4. September wheat closing at 542 1/4, down 18 1/4. December wheat down 17 1/4, 562 1/2. March wheat 585 1/4, down 16 1/4. September bean meal 328.20, that's down 190. September bean oil 28.54, up 31 cents. And current electronic overnight trading, September corn down 1 1/2, December corn down 1 1/4, March corn 387, down 1 1/2. September beans in the overnight down 1/4, November beans down 1 3/4, January beans 904 1/2, down 1 1/4. September wheat in the overnight down 6, December wheat down 6, March wheat 580, down 5 1/4. In the outside markets, October Brent crude oil 72.21, up 38 cents. The December gold contract up 6.60 this morning, 12:01.20. In the livestock market, October lean hogs 56.47, down 2.12. December lean hogs down 105, 54.22. August live cattle 109.07, down 35 cents. October live cattle down 42 cents, 110.45. August feeders 149.62, down 132. September feeders 151.10, down 72 cents. The Illinois direct barrels and gilts trading $1 lower on Monday at 18 to 30. I'm Jim Taylor for the RFD Radio Network.
Good morning, this is Dan Hicks from Freedomain Weather with the early morning ag weather update on the RFD Radio Network for this Tuesday morning. Daytime highs in the 70s and 80s were common across the Midwest yesterday. A slow-moving weather system continued to produce scattered showers and thunderstorms across the region during the past 24 hours. This system will work its way slowly eastward away from Illinois today into tonight. A few scattered showers are expected across the state today, but greatest additional rainfall with this system will now be in the eastern part of the Midwest. Cooler Canadian air will be moving southeastward across the entire Midwest over the next few days, dropping high temperatures down into the mid-70s to mid-80s range across the entire region. Dry weather is expected across the area for Wednesday and Thursday as high pressure moves southeastward into the Midwest. A new system will be developing over the Plains states later this week. This will likely spread some showers into some western parts of the Midwest on Thursday, with the next rain chance forecast here in Illinois late this week into the early part of the weekend. This will likely not be a major rain producer, but should produce some 1/4 to 1 inch rainfall amounts across much of the Midwest. by the time Saturday arrives, and this system will then move on to the east later this weekend. Some drier time will again follow this system for 2 or 3 days across most of the Midwest. Once again, looking ahead into the 6 to 10 day time frame, it does look like an overall warmer pattern will return to the central and eastern U.S. as high pressure aloft builds over the south central and southeastern part of the nation. This should warm temperatures above normal across most of the Midwest during the 6 to 10 day time frame, with highs reaching at least the 80s and low 90s on several days. Best chances for thunderstorms during the 6 to 10 day will be in the northern Midwest, with near to above normal amounts expected. Lighter rainfall is forecast farther south.
Meet the new face of Illinois Farm Bureau, ILFB.org. Our revamped website is your mobile-friendly go-to source for IFB, Ag, and beyond. All it takes is one click for your link to Illinois agriculture.
Click for involvement.
Learn about programs to help you become a better leader.
Click for action.
Find out how you can be an advocate for agriculture.
Click for resources.
Here you'll find helpful materials and information.
Click to explore.
Check out the role of agriculture in our economy and our world.
ILFB.org.
Your link to Illinois Ag.
Remember that movie National Lampoon's Vacation? Well, Clark Griswold has nothing on me. Give me the open road in my Illinois Farm Bureau membership card, and I am the ultimate road warrior. Like last summer, I drove the family to Williamsburg at a fraction of the cost. Once I hit the road, I don't stop for much, so I used my membership to rent a minivan from Enterprise. The kids got more bouncing room, and I saved 5%. Then I used my Illinois Farm Bureau membership to save 20% on choice hotels from here all the way to the East Coast. On the way back, we stopped and saved at our favorite theme park, too. I was hoping it would wear off the kids and they'd sleep. Good thing I got that minivan for bouncing, though. No matter how unique my travel needs are, I know that my membership can help. Illinois Farm Bureau. It's membership for my lifestyle.
Isn't it time you learned how Illinois Farm Bureau member-only discounts fit into your lifestyle? Call your county farm bureau or visit ilfb.org for details.
Be it through headlines, microphones, or tweets, Mike Orso connects rural routes for you. Mike has been covering farm and food issues for more than 3 decades. Whether it's print, video, radio, or feeding your online appetite, Mike keeps you in the loop. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I keep our communities, state, and country in mind with everything I do. My job allows me to work toward this mission with farmers and other rural Illinoisans.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
That is all the time we have for this edition of RFD Illinois. I'm Rita Frazier.
I'm DeLoss Yankee, and we salute a community.
We do.
How about Oakville in Washington County?
I like it there.
Some may say Oakville in Washington County. But I was talking to Farm Week's Dan Grant, and he's down there for the wheat forum today.
Ah.
And he correctly said Oakville.
Oakville.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be curious, and we'll hear from him. He'll be sending reports. With a wheat price around $6 for next year, or will we see more of it, especially with an early harvest?
We believe in wheat.
That's right.
Let's do this.
Cheap cover crop.
For Jim Taylor, I'm Rita Frazier.
I'm DeLoss Yankee. Have a great day.
Hey, Steve Harvey here for the Illinois Broadcasters Association, and in a recent survey, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency was asked to name the top 5 items that every Illinois family needs to have in their home's emergency disaster kit. Check out these answers. Water, can't live without it. Number 2, non-perishable food. Well, after all, a man gotta eat, right? Number 3, weather radio, and make sure you got fresh batteries too. Number 4, flashlight. Even more reason to have fresh batteries on hand. Number 5, first aid kit. Look, there's no reason to feud over what items to put in your family's emergency disaster kit. Get the answers and more at ready.illinois.gov. That's ready.illinois.gov.
Sponsored by the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, aired in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now. Aaron Rodgers talks contract. I'm Jeff Biggs, and as the big wait continues in Green Bay for the Packers to make Aaron Rodgers the new highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, Rodgers said during a local radio interview that the new deal will be good for both sides.
If you ask the team about the last deal that we did, they paid me a lot of money, and they never had a major salary cap year, right? A year that other quarterbacks has had, Breeze has had, and Flacco's had, and these guys where you have 28, 29, 30 million against the cap. If we do another deal, I don't think they would want to nickel and dime me, and I'm not trying to screw them, you know? This is a partnership. That's the only way this is going to work, and the best way things work in this situation is that we're in this thing together.
Aaron Rodgers, courtesy of 5:40 a.m. in Milwaukee. There is also the wait at Ohio State for Urban Meyer, and the Ohio State Board of Trustees is going to meet tomorrow morning. But earlier today, Brett McMurphy, who broke the story, was on the Newey Scruggs Show on NBC Sports Radio.
If Ohio State does bring him back, I think the biggest concern I would have if I'm Ohio State is, what if something else comes out tomorrow? What if something else comes out a week from now? What if something else comes out a month from now that would embarrass the university and would lead to Meyer's dismissal? The president has to decide if he wants to be a cheerleader or a leader.
Baseball tonight is Game 2 at Fenway between the Red Sox and the Tribe. The Yankees are in Miami to face Derek Jeter and the Marlins. And the Astros and the A's will both play, once again tied atop the AL West. The Astros are in Seattle, with the A's home to take on Texas. NFL.com Fantasy is back. Get your league back together and sign up at NFL.com/fantasy now. I'm Jeff Biggs. This is NBC Sports Radio.
This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, DeLaw Shonke.
Hey, good Tuesday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 21st. Coming up on today's program, Doug Yoder is in studio from Country, and Tasha Bunting is in from Illinois Farm Bureau, and we will talk dairy primarily and a new revenue insurance program that is still in the works but will soon be available, and we'll try to hammer some of those details in a little bit. Also, Victoria Klajewski, she is with Growmark, Insect and Plant Disease Technical Manager for Growmark Agronomy. We'll talk to her about several things she has seen in the fields. And Eric Schmidt, with EJS Weather. It's Tuesday. We'll talk weather and just how much longer are these cooler than average temperatures going to last. It looks like by the weekend it will be back toward a dog days of summer feel. One question I have before we go into our first break is about crickets. And how lazy are crickets, by the way? There was one in the backyard keeping me up in one part of the house, so I moved to the couch, and there was one in the front of the house. And if they're going to be doing that all night, can't they just hear each other? Or are they just so lazy that they think one's coming one way? And really, what is the point of the crickets is another thing. And if Doug and Tasha know, I'd be happy to get into that, because I figure after the rapture for the first 10,000 years or so will be just dedicated to worship. But at some point, I would like to ask, why do we have these crickets? What was their purpose, and what good were they doing for us? But they drive us crazy, certainly. And so but that's a different topic for a different day. When we come back after the break, Doug Yoder at Country, Tasha Bunting at Illinois Farm Bureau talking about dairy on RFD Today.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you going to do? You're going to go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. No, you won't. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. I'm going to go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Farm Week and Partners Magazine editor Chris Anderson connects rural routes for you. Chris shares her 4 decades of writing expertise by making sure each edition delivers the best information. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I was raised on a farm in Champaign County growing corn, soybeans, popcorn, pumpkins, and poultry. My top priority is to inform, educate, and even entertain Farm Bureau members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local county farm bureau for your discount code number.
Welcome back to RFD today on a Tuesday. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Joined in studio, ladies first, Tasha Bunting, Livestock Programs at Illinois Farm Bureau. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Doug Yoder at Country Financial. Doug, how are you?
I'm doing great, DeLoss. Thank you.
Well, thanks both for coming in. I think it may have been Farm Income and Innovations Conference or sometime around there a couple of weeks ago where you said there's a new thing that's coming about with dairy, and we certainly want to talk about it at some point. So revenue protection and still in the works?
It is in the works. It's been launched. It's been announced. I believe it was August 8th or 9th. The government actually announced it. Sales will begin October 9th. So we're still getting all the information we need from the government to start training our reps and then educating our customers, dairy farmers, about it, but it's coming. Sales will begin October 9th.
And, Tasha, if we could talk about the impetus for this, it has been documented for quite some time, unfortunately, what we're up against here.
That's right. Dairy farmers are facing some pretty low prices right now, and so this is another opportunity for them to take advantage of a product that might be able to kind of help them ride the tide right now and give them a little more stable protection for their revenue during uncertain times. One
of the things the Farm Bureau has on their website at fb.org, they have a graph of revenue month after month, and it's like an EKG. Yeah. You know, up and down and up and down and up and down. So you can't possibly shift you can't shift inventory, you can't shift milk when it's moving like that. So you just have to, you don't have to write it out, but unfortunately that's the situation that a lot of folks are in right now.
Right, and since milk is not a storable product, it perishes pretty quickly, so it needs to move whenever it's available. So there's not really an opportunity to kind of bank it and save it for when prices are higher. So there's something that will be helpful for dairy farmers hopefully coming soon and starting on October 9th.
There was a time when in the wintertime, we would have cows out on wheat pasture for quite some time, but there was some parts of the year where they just weren't going to produce as much. And then as it got greener, as the grass got greener, they'd eat more and they'd use the feed better and they would produce more. But in today's dairies, I bet that's not necessarily the case at all. I mean, I bet certainly production is a lot more constant than it was back then. And so that can also lead to a lot more milk available than there was back then.
That's true. It is pretty consistent now compared to what it used to be. But there definitely are certain times of the year where we have a little bit of a slump where production falls off, both in the heat of the summer and then during the winter months as well.
So up until this, there was no USDA sponsored program.
There were several government programs that farmers would go through a different government branch, FSA, Farm Service Agency, to access, such as LGM Dairy or Margin Protection Program. This is different. This is a first attempt at a revenue insurance product. This is part of the crop insurance umbrella. So you won't be dealing with FSA for this. You will buy this from a licensed, certified crop insurance agent. So The way I look at this, DeLoss, I go all the way back to 1998. The world in crop insurance changed in 1998 when revenue protection was first launched. Now, 20 years later, it has truly turned itself into the cornerstone for row crop farmers. I think this could be that same pivot point for dairy farmers. Now, granted, it took us a while. There's a long learning curve. When that revenue product first came available for row crops, it went through some iterations, some changes over time. But again, we have 94% of Illinois corn and bean planted acreage buying revenue protection now. So it has truly turned itself into their safety net. I'm not saying dairy farmers will jump in immediately whole hog on this, so to speak, but I think over time we can look back at this and think this could be that turning point.
Wow, that could be something that's a pivotal moment. That's a watershed moment. Hopefully.
It is, and what I like about this is some of the flexibility they built into this for dairy farmers, and the fact that it's mirrored, it's structured very similar to revenue protection that I just talked about on the corn and bean side. Mm-hmm. So they took some of the advantages, some of the things, the features that farmers like on that product, rolled it into this dairy. So hopefully we'll find out over time, after learning curves take place, that sort of thing, that dairy farmers adapt to this as well.
Was that a Farm Bill deal in 98?
That is a good question. I don't recall. I forget, to be quite honest. Now,
96 was the Farm Bill, so it would have been something different
true.
than if it was 98.
We've seen both. We've seen some separate acts authorize certain features of crop insurance. We've also seen Farm Bills offer some changes as well, so you can see both.
Now, there would certainly be insurance on property, on the cows themselves, so that sort of thing, but we're talking about revenue, so we're talking about something
That's correct.
specific.
This does not cover mortality or death loss, things like that. It protects their revenue losses based on several milk price options they can choose from.
Gotcha. So that just goes to what we're talking about, where you have a certain number of cows, you have certain. Hopefully, the dairyman knows how much he or she needs just to be able to make this sort of thing work. And if it goes significantly lower than that, then hopefully there's help from there. Because like we talked about, we can't fluctuate how many cows we can move. Now, you said this comes from the crop insurance agent?
It does. This is part of the crop insurance program from the USDA. So RMA, Risk Management Agency, is in charge of this, and they will oversee this product. And obviously, in my opinion, probably we expect to see changes over time. We get changes in corn and bean coverage each and every year. So I would expect over time we'll see some changes and tweaks to this policy as well.
It's October 9 necessarily the time for crop insurance guy to be ready to go to sell revenue protection.
The challenges are going to be obviously the timing, because right now dairy farmers are chopping silage, then they're going to roll into harvest probably, and it looks like it could be an early harvest this year in many places. So the challenges are going to be, when do they want meetings? We fully plan to be prepared to accommodate their needs, their service requests, and host meetings, informational meetings when they want them. We're going to have to work with the dairy industry and Tasha to determine when the best time to host those meetings would be.
Well, and when do you host anything with a dairy producer?
It's always a busy time, right?
Oh, my gosh. We were always the first to arrive at a family event and the first to leave because the cows had to be milked. We'll continue to discuss. We have a break coming up. We'll talk more. Doug Yoder at Country and Tasha Bunting at Illinois Farm Bureau on RFD today.
Illinois Farm Bureau wants you to get to know us. Check out our new look at ilfb.org. We're your mobile-friendly go-to source for all things ag-related. Find out how we help farmers and Illinois agriculture have a stronger voice in Washington. Learn about our programs, projects, and activities to help ag professionals become stronger leaders. See what we stand behind as an organization as you explore our role in the big picture of agriculture. Visit ilfb.org, your link to Illinois ag.
When it comes to our members, Chris Magnuson connects rural routes for you. Chris leads Illinois Farm Bureau's efforts to provide valuable information to our members. He has spent 2 decades with IFB. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a farm with corn, soybeans, and Christmas trees. I've been in ag communication for 3 decades now. My greatest satisfaction has always remained the same, to serve our members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
You're going to need me. You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our technical skills,
our math, our engineering skills.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills.
You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise, we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
Tonight, we stand and dare to dream big.
On Friday, September 7th, join Stand Up to Cancer for all the inspiration.
It takes courage to take on cancer.
All the laughter.
I'm here to teach you how to conduct a self-exam for cancer.
I thought I was getting a massage.
I know where you are. You change one letter in cancer, it becomes dancer. What?
All the stars.
This is what it feels like to stand on the precipice of great change.
We all have someone. We all have a reason to be on our feet.
Let's dream big and stand tall in this fundamental truth that when we join together to fight cancer, we can beat it.
Because we know what's possible when enough of us stand together.
So stand up with us. Dare to dream big.
Light it up and raise it high.
If we all stand up to cancer together, we can kick it so good.
Every network, every star. One night to save lives. Tune in live Friday, September 7th, 8/7 Central on ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. Check your local listings for cable providers.
All right, welcome back to RFD today on a Tuesday. I'm DeLoss Yankee, talking to Tasha Bunting, Illinois Farm Bureau, Doug Yoder at Country, about the possibility of milk producers, dairy farmers, to get revenue coverage through their crop insurance agent. And so one of the questions, I guess, Doug, is, the price of this has to be attractive enough at a time when the industry is having enough trouble as it is. So I'm trying to make those things.
Absolutely, DeLoss. Regrettably, we didn't have this available several years ago with better milk prices where they could have protected that. We probably could have kept some dairies in business that have had to go out of business here recently. But it is what it is. This is a timing we're given, so we just want to make sure we're prepared to service that industry. That industry will know when they see profitable prices that are break-even prices that they at least want to lock in. So we can't obviously control that, but we can make sure we're ready to service them when needed. But you're right. The challenge right now is not a great time to ask dairy farmers to come up with extra cash to buy extra insurance. But I think over time they will see the value of this, and we'll see this turn into a viable option.
Yeah, Farm Bureau has a graphic of annual average revenue per milking cow in 2016, and Illinois is in the middle tier, closer to the bottom of that middle tier, but it is in the middle tier of, and in fact, Missouri, its neighbor to the west, is significantly less, and Indiana to the east is about $300 more. So it's interesting the fluctuation just amongst neighboring states. So yeah, Tasha, how to put this all together and educate the producers, and some, it could very well be that some are thinking, well, maybe, if they're thinking, do I get out or not, maybe this is the thing that could keep people doing what they're doing.
And this is just one other tool that dairy farmers will be able to utilize. They don't have to pick an either or. This is just one more opportunity for them to have something else that can maybe help them stay afloat during this time that's so critical.
And the lender might say,
yes.
Just like with crop insurance, the lender says, now you've got crop insurance, don't you?
That's exactly right. And back to your point about timing, right now we're going to roll this out during low milk prices. The nice flexible part about this, in my opinion, as compared to corn and bean coverage, let's say, corn and bean coverage, if I want to insure 1 acre of my corn in my county, I have to insure every acre of corn I farm in that county. Not so with this dairy revenue. They can decide how much of their expected production they can insure for each quarter. They can buy some one day, they can add to it in 2 weeks if prices go up. They don't have to insure it all. If they had to insure it all, I know they wouldn't have the cash flow right now, many of them probably to buy it, but they don't have to. They can buy whatever percent they'd like and add to it over time.
Well, and what we were talking about with the lender, for example, with the number of cows that each producer has at this point and the facilities that go with that, and then the upgrades that come with that, you're going to try to get some sort of financing for that sort of thing, I could see where people would ask questions about that. Mm-hmm. But if you had something locked in, then hopefully that would make things a little bit easier.
Right.
Difficult stuff. But yeah, how to put all of this sort of thing together, because surely you've had farmers who have already called you and said, now wait, what is this coming around? And hopefully that's something that has some people's interest already.
Yeah, when news was announced that this tool was going to be available, there's certainly been some interest and curiosity on what exactly the product entails and how they can get it and who they need to get it from. So as we learn more from country and how their rollout is going, training their agents that are going to be able to provide this service, we'll also be working with the Illinois Milk Producers Association and other dairy farmers across Illinois to try to plan some meetings and get some information out to them so that some of those farmers can start making those decisions.
Yeah, because forum's usually in February, end of February. Is that when
right.
that is? Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You need to do that before then, I would think. Yeah. And, gosh, the way the industry is in so many counties, there's a dairy farmer. Not in all of them, but in some there's one family that does this. The one I saw is north of Farmer City. You can tell where silage has been cut, and in some cases they already have lime on the ground ready to work that in. But you can tell where the dairymen are because those cornfields have been emptied already. So one thing about this, Doug, is that it is something you can get through your crop insurance agent, but not necessarily all the crop insurance providers have to even participate in this.
That is correct. We have 170, 175 crop certified agents across the state. We offered to, by the way, this new dairy product requires additional separate certification. So they have to go through a separate certification for this. So we offered that to that group, and I'm very happy to say we have 40 across the state that have stepped up and said they want to be certified to be ready to service this industry. And, of course, not every county, not every area has dairy, so obviously not all of our reps will be impacted by this. But I'm very happy to say we have that sort of willingness from our reps to provide this service.
Well, if there's one dairy in the county, then that agent would say, do I want to go through this for one dairy in the county?
Right.
Well, that can be, whether that's this family or any other insurance provider, then those are the questions that would have to be asked. Interesting stuff. So we still have some details to figure out between now and they go on sale
October 9th, yes.
October 9th.
And the first quarter, they can buy this in quarterly endorsements, so the first quarter they can buy would be the first quarter of 2019. So January, February, March is the first quarter of production they could start buying when sales start October 9th.
Gotcha. You got your sleep caught up from State Fair and all that, Tasha?
We're working on it.
Yeah?
Yeah, getting close.
Nothing like getting back to school after a few days on the state fairgrounds as well. Thanks, Tasha.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Tasha Bunting, Illinois Farm Bureau, Doug Yoder at Country, talking about revenue protection for dairy that is being unveiled. The rollout is going to take place and sales will begin in October. When we come back, Victoria Klajewski at Growmark Agronomy will talk about...
Welcome to the Newsworthy. All the day's news in less than 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. Today we are talking about everything from Russian hackers' latest target to the best-selling album of all time. Those stories and many more in less than 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. Today is Tuesday, August 21st. You ready? Let's do this. There's another security threat that seems to come from Russia, but this time, hackers have a new target: conservative think tanks and the U.S. Senate. In a new report today, Microsoft said it found and took control of websites created by a group of hackers that are linked to a Russian military unit. The same Russian-tied group believed to have interfered in the 2016 election, by the way. The New York Times reports this time hackers created websites meant to look like sites from a couple different think tanks and the Senate. Just one letter or symbol would be the only thing different in the URL. Hackers apparently hoped people would think they're clicking through the real site, when really they could be handing over passwords or other sensitive information to the wrong people. The websites could also be used to send emails to Senate staffers or other workers and try to trick them. These particular conservative think tanks that were targeted this time are ones that have wanted more sanctions against Russia. So experts are saying the hacking and interfering in elections is not really about one U.S. political party or another. It's about who will be the best for Russia itself. For now, it seems Microsoft helped stop it. The company says it wants to see tech companies and the federal government working together more to protect against these types of cyber attacks. A big announcement for the coal industry. Today, President Trump is expected to explain a new plan that'll get rid of environmental restrictions on coal-fired power plants and leave it up to the states to decide how to handle them instead. The new plan is also expected to relax pollution rules for facilities that need upgrades. The Wall Street Journal reports it could help coal plants stay competitive with renewable energy sources. It essentially rewrites the Clean Power Plan, which was part of President Obama's effort to slow down climate change, although those rules have been held up in a court battle. Now, it's environmental groups who say they'll be the ones taking this new plan to court. The Pope just wrote a first-of-its-kind letter to all Catholics this week, all 1.2 billion of them around the world. The letter asked them to condemn sex abuse by priests and help get rid of any cover-ups. Pope Francis called the cover-ups a, quote, culture of death. Reuters reports the letter seemed to be a call for Catholics to face the sex abuse crisis together. But some critics called for more action to deal with the issue and fewer words. Remember, just last week, a grand jury report found the Catholic Church covered up abuse of more than 1,000 children in Pennsylvania alone. Venezuela is dealing with a big problem and is making a big radical change to try and fix it. The problem? Soaring inflation. The inflation rate hit 60,000% over the weekend, and experts think it'll hit 1,000,000% by the end of the year. As NPR put it, it takes stacks of bills just to buy toilet paper there. The radical move to try and fix it changed the currency. CNBC reports the government is now handing out new banknotes linked to a government-run cryptocurrency called the Petro, and the new currency gets rid of 5 zeros. So one new banknote will be worth 100,000 of the old Bolivar. The government calls it a magic formula for economic reform. But many experts are saying this will actually only make things worse. The economic crisis is already so bad that thousands of people are trying to leave the country. The number of people with measles just hit a record high in Europe, and experts told the BBC it's because not as many people are getting vaccinated. The World Health Organization says more than 41,000 people were infected in the first half of this year. That's almost double the number of cases for the entire year last year. Measles is highly contagious, but now discredited research got a bunch of people not to trust the vaccine. Doctors and other experts are trying to change that and stop these outbreaks. All right, some other things people may be talking about today. Pepsi plans to buy SodaStream. If you haven't heard of SodaStream, it makes at-home machines that can carbonate water or other drinks on the spot. NBC News says Pepsi knows the younger generation wants healthier, more environmentally friendly options, so it's trying to get on board. It means less sweetened soda and more sparkling water, made at home without another single-use plastic bottle. Apple may be coming out with a new low-cost laptop later this year. Bloomberg is reporting the new laptop will likely look similar to the current MacBook Air, but with some upgrades. The rumor is it'll come out in October, after some new iPhones, Apple Watches, and iPad Pros are launched first. The MTV Video Music Awards aired last night, so here are a few moments to know about. Jennifer Lopez got the Michael Jackson Video Vanguard Award for her work over the last 2 decades, and her performance reminded us of many of her hit songs over the years. Some cast members from the old MTV reality show The Hills are back, saying a reboot is coming. Madonna was in charge of the Aretha Franklin tribute since the Queen of Soul died last week. Madonna told a story about singing an Aretha Franklin song to get her big break, and now some are saying Madonna made that tribute moment too much about Madonna. There were other presenters like Tiffany Haddish and several performances from stars like Ariana Grande. Camila Cabello won Video and Artist of the Year. There's a new best-selling album in the U.S. now. The Eagles album called Their Greatest Hits 1971 to 1975 took that top spot. It pushed Michael Jackson's Thriller down to number 2. The Recording Industry Association of America reported these new numbers, and yes, the AP says those figures do now include both traditional sales and streaming from digital sources like YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. And that's it for today. You are all caught up. Thank you so much again for listening. Please be sure to share this episode with a friend or let someone know about the Newsworthy. As always, if you want to read more about any of the news stories we talked about today, just check out today's show notes. You can find them at thenewsworthy.com. Just click episodes and find today's date. The Newsworthy is ready for you to listen every weekday by 4 in the morning Eastern Time. We'll be back with more news tomorrow. Have a great day.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Tuesday, August 21st, 2018. Silver is trading at $14.73 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,190 per ounce. Zencash is trading at $20, and the average price of Bitcoin is $6,439. Antiwar.com reports that speaking on the 65th anniversary of the 1953 CIA coup against Iran, the Iranian foreign minister accused the newly established Iran Action Group of being an attempt by the U.S. government to repeat the coup, but that it will fail. The State Department announced the establishment of the Iran Action Group last week, with Brian Hook appointed to lead it as a special representative for Iran. Exactly what the group will be doing is not entirely clear. The State Department did try to present Hook's responsibility as coordinating all anti-Iran activities within the department, however, which suggests that it's reasonable for Iran to conclude the goal is regime change, despite some Trump administration officials denying that they are seeking regime change. Iran's foreign minister says U.S. attempts at regime change will come through pressure, misinformation, and demagoguery. The U.S. has been fairly open about spreading misinformation about Iran and trying to organize protest against the government, and in recent weeks has presented those protests as proof the Iranian government needs to make radical changes. Zencash is an end-to-end encrypted system with zero-knowledge technology over which communications, data, or value can be securely transmitted and stored. With both secure nodes and supernodes, Zencash recently surpassed 17,000 nodes, which means Zencash has one of the largest node systems of any cryptocurrency. Supernodes will advance the decentralization of the Zencash network and ensure the utility not only of Zencash as a currency, but also the future services that will be layered in the infrastructure. Learn more at zencash.com. UPI reports a Michigan judge on Monday ordered the state's health director to stand trial on involuntary manslaughter charges over 2 deaths linked to a water crisis in Flint. Nick Lyon, the highest-ranking state official to face charges related to the city's tainted water supply, which was not properly treated when officials decided to draw from the Flint River in April 2014, switching from its previous source of Lake Huron. In addition to causing lead poisoning in children, the improperly treated water supply led to an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Flint, killing Robert Skidmore and John Snyder. Lyon was charged in June 2017 for the 2 deaths, as well as a felony count of misconduct in office. The charging document said Lyon showed gross negligence when he did not alert the public about the Legionnaire's outbreak until a year after he became aware of it. The document says he took steps to suppress information illustrating obvious and apparent harms that were likely to result in serious injury. Defendant Lyon willfully disregarded the deadly nature of the Legionnaire's disease outbreak. Prosecutors say Lyon instructed an official to stop an analysis that would have helped determine the crisis's cause. On Monday, when ordering the trial, 67th District Court Judge David Goggins said, "I find this behavior corrupt." Lyon could face 15 years in prison if convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The misconduct charge carries a possible 5-year sentence. Governor Rick Snyder named Lyon to the position on April 10th, 2015, when he created a new agency that merged the Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Department of Community Health. Lyon had led the latter department. He is one of 15 current and former city and state officials facing charges for criminal wrongdoing in the Flint water scandal. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. You can join the Fans program for as little as $1 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. Reuters reports Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar said that it is within his agency's power to eliminate rebates on prescription drug purchases, a key element of the Trump administration's plan to lower prescription medicine costs. Such rebates are negotiated in the United States by pharmacy benefit managers to lower cost of medicines for their clients, which include large employers and health plans that cover tens of millions of Americans. Drug makers say they are under pressure to provide rebates to the few pharmacy benefit managers that dominate the market, which include CVS, CVS, Express Scripts, and United Health's Optum, and that those payers do not pass on enough of the savings to patients, a contention the pharmacy benefit managers dispute. The drug makers say the rebates force them to raise the price on their therapies over time to preserve their business. The Trump administration has been receptive to that argument. Azar, in an interview with Reuters on Friday, said rebates create a perverse incentive to continuously raise drug prices. This has been FPP Radio News. Online at fppradio.com.
Remember back a few years ago when you wanted to sell something? Where could you advertise that product? You had so many media to choose from. There were signboards and newspapers and radio and television. Which one should you pick? Well, thanks to Heartland Newsfeed, those days are over. Let us help you plan a print ad, an online ad, or a radio ad that will target your customer. And the price is based on the type of advertising you want to do, the size of the print ad, or the length of the radio spot. Or you can choose all three. And our prices are considerably more affordable than the competition. And best of all, we guarantee satisfaction. If you don't like your ad, we'll do it over for you. We want you to be satisfied with what we do, so you'll let us plan your advertising over and over. So, call Heartland Newsfeed today at 1-866-285-4117. That's 1-866-285-4117. It's a new type of advertising for a brand new century.
Stay tuned for more on RFD Today, right here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Daniel Grant connects rural routes for you. With more than 2 decades of reporting under his belt, Dan is the go-to source for farmers when it comes to commodities. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a grain and livestock farm near Roseville in Warren County. What I love about my job is working with people, traveling across Illinois, and visiting farms along the way.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Here in Illinois, it's everywhere, and it's used in so many things. We're talking about Illinois homegrown corn. It's fuel for your vehicle on the way to the game. It's a delicious corn-fed bacon cheeseburger that's the talk of the tailgate. Corn is even used to make things like plastic water bottles and lipstick. We're proud that Illinois runs on homegrown corn, and you should be too. Learn more about how corn shows up in unexpected places at watchusgrow.org/corn. A message from Illinois corn farmers and their checkoff.
Yes, I listen to a lot of talk radio, but I wouldn't call myself a political junkie. I guess that's why I like being a member of the Illinois Farm Bureau. No matter what my comfort level is, Farm Bureau has something for me and my farm. As an Illinois Farm Bureau member, I can pick and choose what's best for me, from reading election news in Farm Week to actually going to Washington. That's enough to make me a policy nut after all.
Call your county Farm Bureau and customize your membership today.
Thanks for shopping. Please come again.
Wow, you're really getting some bargains today. Think of all the money you've saved.
I know. And even better, my purchases are helping teach kids about agriculture.
Whoa, back up. I know you got some deals today, but I don't remember that purchase.
I use my Illinois Farm Bureau Visa card. Each time it's swiped, the IAA Credit Union makes a contribution to the Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom program.
Now that's a great deal. What else does your card do?
It's what it doesn't do. Charge me extra fees, have surprise rate jumps. Not with this card. I use it for all of my purchases.
I like the sound of that. Tell me, exactly what does Illinois Agriculture in the Classroom do?
They teach kids where their food really comes from. Just by using my card, I help provide teachers and volunteers with free materials so they can spread the message of the importance of agriculture in their classrooms.
You know, the IFB Visa card may be the best bargain yet. I'm going to get one of those for myself.
Get a great card. Help a great cause. Go to IAAFoundation.org and click on the IFB Visa card to get one of your own.
All ag.
All Illinois.
All now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. All right, welcome back. We are visiting with Victoria Klajewski. She is with Growmark Agronomy Services, And Monday afternoon, she was coming back from Pike County, and we can talk about a whole bunch of things. But, Victoria, as you've been driving around, as we think about soybeans, what are some of the things you've been noticing quite a bit?
So I was actually just visiting a few fields in Pike County where there's some SDS showing up. In some of the fields, the symptoms show up kind of late in the reproductive stages, so I don't envision yields being highly impacted in those areas. But a couple of the fields that we saw today, the symptoms started to show up before R3 on soybeans, and those are the ones where the pods are really small. There's just a few pods on those plants, and I expect those soybean fields being highly impacted on yields because of SDS. A few of the fields where the severity was, a little less had some seed treatments, Alivo for SDS, so that helped a lot. But these fields were all planted really early. The soils were still cool and moist, and as you know, SDS usually infects soybeans earlier, as soon as the roots are starting to grow at planting, even though we don't start seeing symptoms until after flowering. But yeah, it's a combination of things too. I did find one field that had red crown rot. It's actually a pathogen that hasn't really been reported or hasn't been an issue in Illinois. It's a pathogen that has shown up down south. It's a pathogen of peanuts too, but it can affect soybeans. And this one field had very severe damage by red crown rot. So the above ground symptoms are very similar to SDS. There's really no way to tell them apart, except for the fact that red crown rot has these tiny red structures on the lower part of the stem. It's called the perithecia. Those are the reproductive structures of that fungus. So kind of hard to tell them apart.
Well, that's the first time that I feel like I've talked to anybody about SDS. Is that necessarily a good thing, a bad thing, or is this actually it seems a little late? Is this the time of year for that?
Well, yes, it is. I mean, it starts showing up after flowering, really, but I'm down south in the southern part of the state right now, but I was actually driving back from Wisconsin yesterday, and driving on the road on 57, I did find, it's hard to tell from the road what's really happening, but there were a lot of patches of yellow that were showing up just south of Kankakee on the way down here. I didn't have time to get out of the truck and go and see if that was actually SDS, but I expect, we're going to be hearing more about SDS this time of the year. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we want those symptoms to hold on until or yields have been defined after R5. We probably won't get a whole lot of yield damage. So if you're getting closer to that stage and you're just now starting to see symptoms, I don't expect a whole lot of yield losses. But if you're still in the early reproductive stages and you're starting to see symptoms already, that can potentially have a lot of yield damage. So yeah, I know. My husband at UOI has had some reports also from other areas. So it is that time of the year where we're going to start hearing about this a lot more.
While you were in Pike County, did you see Japanese beetles, or did you certainly see evidence of them having been in some fields?
Oh yes, definitely. And I was actually surprised because, I mean, it's very late in the year. You will expect all the adults of Japanese beetles, being gone from the fields. But I did find a few pockets of clusters of beetles on some of those soybean fields. So they're still out there. They're still feeding. They're still doing damage. But as you know, soybeans do require a lot of defoliation for us to actually see some yield impacts. But yeah, the lower numbers than we had, 3-4 weeks ago for sure. But yeah, they're still out there. And we were actually digging down on those same soybean fields, and we were finding a lot of tiny grubs. So probably those eggs that were laid, over a month ago by those Japanese beetles have already hatched. And now you can start seeing the grub state underground. So those were some of the things that we were doing today. So precautions, if you're finding high numbers of grubs on those soybean fields where there were a lot of Japanese beetles already before harvest, you make sure you're scouting next year and potentially think about, putting seed treatments if you're rotating to corn to prevent grub damage on that corn next year, for sure.
So seed treatments and maybe an insecticide if we've been going away from that recent years?
Yeah, the thing about seed treatments, right, is that they have a pretty wide spectrum in the sense that a lot of those early soil pests that will come and feed on your corn, I'm talking wireworm, I'm talking white grubs, seed corn maggots, for example, and even gray collapses that we heard a lot about this year. Seed treatments can help your corn, especially protect the roots of your corn from feeding by these soil early season pests. I know in-furrow insecticides are also an option. If you've already kind of made your mind on what seed to buy and what seed treatment package to buy, if you're out there scouting, hopefully, before planting, you can make a decision right there and then of what to do depending on the pressure you have of putting an insecticide to protect those roots and get that corn to a good start next year.
Tori Klajewski, stay tuned. We'll have more with her talking about agronomy throughout the state on RFD today.
I used to say I was an Illinois Farm Bureau member because it gives us farmers a voice in Washington. Then there was a bad regulation proposed in my community. That's when I learned what my county Farm Bureau does for me right here in my own backyard. From giving scholarships to local kids to tackling township or zoning concerns, Farm Bureau starts right here. And now, that's why I say I'm a member.
Call your county Farm Bureau and rediscover your grassroots power.
Farm Week and FarmWeekNow.com journalist Dina Stroish connects rural routes for you. From the Farm Bill to crop insurance to GMO labeling, her expertise is apparent in the stories she reports. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I get to meet interesting people and share their stories, and I get paid to do it. I cover ag policy and really enjoy keeping the farming community updated on these important issues.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. We're down just a little bit for corn and soybeans now. September corn down 1, 361. December down 1 1/4, 375 1/4. September soybeans down a penny, 880 3/4. November down 1 1/4, 892. We started the day down half a dozen, now down just a penny. September wheat down 9 3/4, 532 1/2. December down 9 1/2. 553. Livestock's a little bit higher. October hogs up 30, 56.77. December up 20, 54.42. The Illinois direct hog market is down another $1 early in the week with a top of only $30 a hundredweight. October cattle up 60, 111 1/5. September feeders up 15, 151 1/4. And crude oil for October up 67, 66 9 cents. It's the RFD Radio Network. Welcome back to RFD Today. Doug Yoder's still in studio. One of the things we didn't get across, because this is something from USDA talking about the dairy revenue protection. Since this is a federal program and sold through crop insurance agents, that means that farmers don't have to bear the whole brunt of the premiums either.
That is true, DeLoss. One advantage to this as part of the crop insurance umbrella or the package of policies is the premiums are subsidized. Anywhere from 44% to 59%, depending on which coverage level they choose. So that's the only way that crop insurance is affordable to row crop farmers, and obviously we need that here on the dairy side to make it affordable for dairy producers as well.
Yeah, that's why we say don't mess with crop insurance. Maybe someday we'll say the same thing about revenue protection.
I hope so. I think this does have the potential. Again, I would fully expect that we'll see tweaks and changes over time once we see how well it works and what suggestions our dairy producers have to make it even better. I don't think what we see today is what we'll see in 2 or 3 years. I think there'll be changes, but I'm very happy to see this first attempt.
Well, yeah, just the fact that there's subsidies there up to 59% could be the change of a farmer saying, well, maybe we'll place a call about that and find out after all.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And just like row crop farming, there's so many things out of their control, prices and things like that, that's the justification using taxpayer dollars to help fund this, because obviously we need Congress is very intent on providing our citizens with a stable, safe food supply, including milk. So that's the justification in this.
All right. Doug Yoder at Country. We'll get back to talking agronomy here. Victoria Klajewski for Growmark, Insect and Plant Disease Technical Manager. She goes to Illinois, she goes to Iowa, she goes to Wisconsin, and sometimes different states in the same day. We were talking, in fact, Rita visited with an agronomist recently about gray leaf spot in southern Illinois. That was her territory, was southern Illinois. Have you seen that beyond southern? Has that been all throughout the territory this year?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty much everywhere. If you had a good, when you look at the rainfall, the forecast, the rainfall that we had in May and June, we had kind of a really wet June. Those were probably the areas, those areas with heavy rain and heavy moisture. Those were probably the areas where gray leaf spot really kind of exploded a little earlier in the season. But yeah, gray leaf spot has been found, pretty much everywhere to an extent. Some fields have had it worse than others. Some fields had it earlier than others. So I know there were some areas, especially when you get closer to the Missouri border, there's an area there that's typically pretty dry. I know some of those areas got away with not having to spray a fungicide because it wasn't really a problem. But I feel like in every field that I've been to, I have seen some lesions from gray leaf spot, depending on where you are. In some fields worse than others. But it's been out there for sure. I did actually last week, I got some questions on tar spot from the northern parts of the state and even Wisconsin. They're starting to see some tar spot on corn too. I asked them to send those samples to the plant clinic just to make sure that the diagnosis is right. But we're starting to see some of that on the northern parts of the state. We saw a little bit of corn top dieback also a few weeks ago. Some of it was anthracnose related. So anthracnose is a stalk rot that can cause symptoms of top dieback, where the top parts of the canopy or the top leaves start to die off from the margins end. And some areas where, because it was just really dry and drought stress, can cause some of that soybean top dieback. So I've been seeing some of that on corn too. So time to scout for stalk rots for sure. We talk about R5 to R6. Not because there's anything you can do at that point to kill the fungus or prevent that stalk rot from developing, but to know which fields you need to get ahead of and harvest first to prevent those plants from lodging. So start scouting for stalk rots and even ear rots this time of the year too, if you haven't started already.
But yeah, I was just thinking about that. We don't want to make that field later in the year if we're going to put it at risk the longer it stays in the field then.
Yeah, that's correct. And these stalk rots are not always going to result in lodging, but if you have environmental conditions that will help or favor lodging, if you have, windstorms, heavy wind, and a lot more, rainfall, if you have rainfall events, that can actually increase the chances of those plants lodging. And that, of course, will make the harvest very difficult, and that's where you're going to see the real yield impact if you get into lodging problems. So we want to get ahead of those issues if we can. That's the whole purpose of scouting early for these issues.
A lot of different issues, but hopefully still, by and large, you see a pretty good-looking crop through your travels.
Yeah, I'm surprised. The corn is really turning very quickly. So I'm driving around, and you see the corn is like turning yellow and browning, and it's just, really ahead already. And soybeans are still green, and there's a lot of fields where the soybeans are looking really pretty. And there's a few soybean fields, like I said before, are starting to show up some SBS symptoms. So that's kind of like what I've been seeing on the crops. But yeah, everything is looking pretty good. We got a little bit of rain, which it was much needed for sure, especially on soybeans here. But yeah, everything is looking good. I love driving around this time of the year and see how the crops turn out and what kind of issues we're facing this growing season. So.
Yeah, some things, it's hard to imagine that we could duplicate this year's growing season next year. So some of those things come and go with just the different weather patterns that are given to us. But there are other things that you're talking about that we can certainly keep our eyes on, or that we could remember for next year from some sort of management practice.
Yes, that's correct. And like you said, a lot of those issues are very environment related. And, when you think about where the disease triangle entitles, it's not just the pathogen or the crop being present, but environment plays a big factor in whether, the severity and the extent of damage by some of these pathogens and whether there'll be a problem in your field or not. So always keep an eye on weather, not just to make it a topic of conversation, but also to kind of predict what kind of issues we're going to be facing here, in the near future. So yeah.
Well, drive safely. Glad we could do this, Victoria. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Victoria Klajewski, Growmark Agronomy. David Powell's down in southern Illinois. Got folks all over the place looking at the crop, and heard a lot of comments like what Victoria just mentioned of how quickly the corn has been turning in recent weeks. Do you have livestock, farm equipment, land, or services to sell? Farm Week Classifieds can help. Call the toll-free number, 800-573-6120. Call them today or submit online, farmweeknow.com. 800-573-6120 or online at farmweeknow.com. We'll talk weather in just a little bit with Eric Schmidt down in Newton at EJS Weather. Tomorrow, Illinois Farm Bureau President Rich Giebert will visit with Rita. I'll be out at Maggie over at the McLean County Fairgrounds, the event from Illinois Fertilizer Chemical Association. We'll be broadcasting for part of the show there on tomorrow's program. Stay with us. We'll talk weather in just a second on RFD today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yonke. Illinois direct hog market started the week another $1 lower, now $18 to $30 a hundredweight. So some of the fat hogs at $18. You don't see those prices very often. Usually when you do see them, it's late in the fourth quarter. Here we are still in the middle of the third. Sow market steady, 20 to 27 for lights, 23 to 32 for heavyweights. Light boars top at 15, heavyweights with a top of 8. Wholesale market, though, was, for beef was sharply higher, up $2.60 for choice yesterday, $213.98. Select up $1.37. Pork cutout values were up 6 cents at 66 9 cents. Tyson has agreed to acquire a top meat supplier to McDonald's and other chains as well, paying $2.16 billion for Keystone Foods. This is the RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out IllinoisLivestock.org.
Welcome back to RFD Today. I'm DeLoss Yankee on a Tuesday. We talk weather on Tuesday. Today we'll chat with Eric Schmidt at EJS Weather down in Jasper County. How's everything down there today, Eric?
Okay, not too bad. Pretty cloudy.
Pretty cloudy. Did you get any rain these last couple of days?
We did. I think we got all around an inch of rain, I think, pretty close, give or take a little bit on either side of that across our part of the state.
Not too shabby this time of year. I feel like certainly last year and maybe even the last 2 years where folks around there, Effingham area, just kept missing. So hopefully a better growing season this time around.
Appears to be right now. Talking to area farmers, everything is looking good, I think. We've had some timely rains, and so that keeps them happy.
Boy, nothing like a timely rain to keep the guy smiling. So even with the crop price isn't very good, timely rains can make it go a little bit better. So I'm looking at temperatures in parts of the state. Even Peoria, for example, today will be one of 4 consecutive days where we won't even see 80 in late August. What's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, again, partly, especially today, due to the cloud cover, we will have a bit of a cool shot for the month of August here the next couple days. Actually, we'll have a couple of pleasant days, Wednesday and Thursday, with quite a bit of sunshine and lower humidity and only highs in the upper 70s for the most part. So a little bit of a reprieve from summer, but hold that thought because summer's going to make a comeback this weekend into looks like much of the rest of August.
Yeah, I see. After the cool stretch, it comes right back to summer-like temperatures. So, yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. Now, one time when this happened not that long ago, it seemed that the heat was being trapped in places like Waco, Texas, when they were setting records at 110 degrees. Is that the same case this time around, or is it just flat-out cooler than usual?
No, it's mostly across this part of the country, further out to the west, parts of Texas, and across parts of the west. That's where the heat is currently over the next couple days. But then that upper-level ridge of high pressure is going to expand back over this area. And like I said, by the latter part of this weekend, and then looks like into a good part of next week, we could see some 90s across this area. Even looking a little longer term into the end of August into early September, may even see some 90s if the long-range models verify.
Wow. So, yeah, we're talking about corn turning quickly. That would certainly make it turn as we get into the weekend and long-term. So I guess one thing you're saying is it doesn't sound like early frost dates would be anywhere in the vicinity.
It certainly doesn't appear so. I mean, we're a ways from that so far, and looking into at least early September and even in mid-September, don't see anything like that at this time. And like I said, we're still a little bit far out for that.
Are we in any kind of El Nino at this point, or La Nina? I haven't asked about that as often as I used to, but what kind of system are we in, if any, right now?
Right now, we're in a neutral phase, but El Nino is slowly developing across the equatorial Pacific Ocean, and that is likely to continue to develop as we go into the fall and into winter. At least that's what the long-range models are suggesting right now.
If it's slow to develop, did that necessarily have any predicting on what kind of intensity it will eventually have?
Hard to tell how intense. I mean, it is gradually developing, it looks like, right now. Hard to tell exactly how strong it will be, but certainly with an El Nino in place for this part of the country, especially during the winter, that can tend to provide more of a mild winter with generally less snow, but overall could be a little wetter winter, but less on the snow side. So we'll have to monitor those trends over the next few months.
I was going to ask about precip. You mentioned longer range forecasts could show some warmer than average temperatures. What about precipitation for, say, 30 or 60 day?
With the El Nino, it's kind of up and down precipitation-wise. As far as the next couple of weeks go, we do see a system on Friday that will bring some more rain to the area, then drier for this weekend and early next week, then maybe another little system toward the middle of next week. And the first part of September looks, at least right now, on the hotter side and the drier side, looking a little further out, kind of more average precip, a little hard to tell on the specifics as we get towards more into fall.
Well, sounds like people will be able to roll through harvest if those kind of scenarios are about. Record high in Springfield, by the way, on this date was 104 back in the Dust Bowl time of 1936. So nowhere near then, but this weekend we'll see things get back to at least average, it sounds like.
Yeah, and certainly above average as we head toward early next week. And throughout the rest of the month, there'll be temperatures be more above average, and the humidity will make a return.
All right, sir. Thanks so much. Good to talk to you again, Eric. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Have a good day.
Eric Schmidt, EJS Weather, down in Jasper County, a little bit south and a little bit east of Effingham. By the way, precipitation-wise, while I was looking at Springfield, for example, since June 1, 13 2/3 inches, 3 more than average. For the year, 27 3/4, 3 more than average. So not too shabby weather-wise, at least this growing season. I'm DeLoss Yankee saying watch your ends. Rita and I will both be on the air tomorrow.
You probably don't spend a lot of time paying attention to Elizabeth Warren. You remember her. She claimed to be Native American to get a preferred admission to college. Well, Democrats are paying attention to her. They think she would make an excellent candidate for president. So let me share with you her latest idea. She has introduced a bill called the Accountable Capitalism Act. Now, in the American economy, the ability of a new business to grow rapidly. Reason Magazine writes that is one of the most defining and precious features of the American economy. Elizabeth Warren would put that on hold. Because once a business got to the point of $1 billion in sales, and Apple is nearing $1 trillion a year, well, that business would have to apply to the Federal Government Office of United States Corporations for permission to keep operating. And at that point, 40% of the board of directors would have to be company employees. And there would also be federal controls on how much executives could be paid. Germany has something like this going on, and as a result, Germany has failed to become a dominant player in tech, for instance. Their economy is dominated by old behemoths, as they're called, like Volkswagen. The United States is home to 64% of the billion-dollar corporations. Elizabeth Warren's plan would fundamentally upend the way most productive companies in our economy work from the top down. You can forget what Obama said about if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. How about if you like your retirement plan? Keep an eye on this lady. Solomon Brothers Studios, Naples. This is Neal Boortz.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
Aaron Rodgers talks contract. I'm Jeff Biggs, and as the big wait continues in Green Bay for the Packers to make Aaron Rodgers the new highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, Rodgers said during a local radio interview that the new deal will be good for both sides.
If you ask the team about the last deal that we did, they paid me a lot of money, and they never had a major salary cap year, right? A year that other quarterbacks has had, Breeze has had, and Flacco's had, and these guys where you have 28, 29, 30 million against the cap. If we do another deal, I don't think they would want to nickel and dime me, and I'm not trying to screw them, you know? This is a partnership. That's the only way this is going to work, and the best way things work in this situation is that we're in this thing together.
Aaron Rodgers, courtesy of 5:40 a.m. in Milwaukee. There is also the wait at Ohio State for Urban Meyer, and the Ohio State Board of Trustees is going to meet tomorrow morning. But earlier today, Brett McMurphy, who broke the story, was on the Newey Scruggs Show on NBC Sports Radio.
If Ohio State does bring him back, I think the biggest concern I would have if I'm Ohio State is, what if something else comes out tomorrow? What if something else comes out a week from now? What if something else comes out a month from now that would embarrass the university and or lead to Meyer's dismissal? The president has to decide if he wants to be a cheerleader or a leader.
Baseball tonight is Game 2 at Fenway between the Red Sox and the Tribe. The Yankees are in Miami to face Derek Jeter and the Marlins. And the Astros and the A's will both play, once again tied atop the AL West. The Astros are in Seattle, with the A's home to take on Texas. NFL.com Fantasy is back. Get your league back together and sign up at NFL.com/fantasy now. I'm Jeff Biggs. This is NBC Sports Radio.
The game doesn't stop.
Neither should you.
Wherever you go, the game goes too using the enabled FM chip in your phone and the Next Radio app.
The Next Radio app brings real FM radio to your phone.
Just plug in your headphones and listen to the Next Radio app, and you'll save major data and battery life compared to streaming apps. And there are no blackouts, so you never miss the games you love played on your local FM radio station. Download the Next Radio app to enhance your radio listening experience. And keep going. With no blackouts and restrictions, the game follows you. Your favorite team, host, and commentator go with you.
The best thing is, it's all totally free. No subscriptions, no fees. Get off the sidelines and download the Next Radio app today, free.
Next Radio, live and local, wherever you go.
Do you or a loved one have a chronic condition such as diabetes, a heart condition, or asthma? Do you or a loved one have a severe allergy to a certain food, drug, or insect? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you are a candidate for an electronic medical alert watch, the alternative to the traditional medical ID bracelet. An electronic medical alert watch visibly communicates a person's health conditions, drug, food, and other allergies, and other critical information to help make a diagnosis and save a life. Take control of your health. Protect yourself or your loved ones and order an electronic medical alert watch today. Visit www.epill.com. That's epill.com. Affordable, free shipping, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember, www.epill.com. That's EPILL.com. ePill.
Today we decided to walk to school. The light counted. 15, 14,
41, 31, 13. We
took a left on Carroll Street. Danny's smart, but he gets distracted.
I
realized he forgot his homework. I hope he doesn't have another bad day at school.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org. Brought to you by Understood and the Ad Council.
The true end of South Africa is upon us. It is at hand, and the ripple effect of that collapse will be felt worldwide as millions and millions of people will flee starvation and chaos and corruption, looking for any safe haven from the hell that has been created for them. The issue at hand at the moment, the tipping point, the straw perhaps that breaks the camel's back, is land seizures, otherwise known as theft. Now, this has been a thorn in the socialist mind of South African leadership, well, for decades really, and it is a tale told by communists full of sound and fury, signifying collapse, because what the communists and the socialists and the leftists do is they look for any discrepancy in outcome. Some group is making more, some group is making less. Some group has more land, some group has less land. Some group has more savings, some group has less savings. Some group are more engineers, some group have fewer engineers. And then they say that the only conceivable possible explanation for any discrepancy in the outcome between groups is bigotry. Racism, sexism, you name it, it is evil bigotry, and that is the only possible cause. Now, it's not true. There are many causes for discrepancies between groups outside of racism, and the interesting thing is that to call all discrepancies between ethnic groups racism is in fact racist, because in general it blames whites for all statistical discrepancies in outcomes between ethnic groups, which is false. There are many other and better explanations, in particular, intelligence differences on average between ethnicities, which is well documented, and I've talked about many times on the show, had the experts on to talk about. We'll put an entire list in the description to this video and in the notes to the podcast so that you can go through this and understand it. But that is the actual explanation, and to claim otherwise is a form of vile bigotry and racism. So, what has happened? Well, in 2017, the South African government found that whites, who are 9% of South Africa's population, own 72% of the country's private farmland. That's the way it's described, but that's not the way it is. Now, the way it's described is you say, wow, 9% of the people own 72% of the farmland. That seems horribly unjust and unfair. That must be fixed. It's predatory. They must have stolen it. They must... Okay, first of all, the farms, they're not just owned, they were created, you see. South Africa, like Africa as a whole, kind of dry. And these farms that were created by mostly the Dutch farmers called the Boers, these farms were created, they have complex irrigation systems, significant amounts of technology, they require extraordinary high levels of intelligence and competence to operate, and transferring them is not particularly easy, and it has been tried many, many times in South Africa. The farms were acquired through enclosures, they were acquired through trade, through treaties, and sometimes they were acquired through conquest. The right of conquest is recognized by just about every tribe I've ever read about in South Africa, so complaining about it hundreds of years later seems a bit precious. And I mean, there was an indigenous population in South Africa when the Bantus came down. Where are they now? See, it only seems that you can use guilt against people who have that kind of conscience. So this is where this leads, and it never stops. So the South African government has now begun the process of stealing, of seizing, of expropriating, of taking white-owned farmland. And there are reports that the South African government has filed legal paperwork trying to steal 2 farms for and offering a mere 1/10 of their estimated value. Now, I want you to understand this, because this is the government coming to your house and saying, we are now taking your house, we're going to kick you out on the street, and we're going to pay you 1/10 the value of your house. If your house is worth $500,000, they're going to be paying you $50,000. Good luck with all of that, except it's far worse. The farmers who have been farming there, I mean, just to get a sense of the perspective and the time frame we're talking about, a lot of the white farmers in South Africa have been farming that land. It has been family land for longer than America has been a country. So they're going way back. And each farm, in particular the white farms in South Africa, feeds 3,000 people. Feeds 3,000 people. The ANC's leader, the African National Congress's leader, also said that, we can just take land anyway without compensation if it is, quote, in the public interest, which of course is a big phrase for I wish to punish my enemies and reward my friends, the basic process of politics as a whole. So there's one piece of land that they say, well, it got assessed for $13.8 million in 2011. It's 200 million rand because, well, the rand used to trade at parity to the US dollar, but now, of course, with corruption and malfeasance and debt and a 37% exclamation mark unemployment rate, it's lost its value completely, well, significantly, let's say. So, yeah, it was assessed for $13.8 million, 200 million rand. The government wants to take it for 20 million rand or $1.38 million. Now, they're also saying that they're going to offer this and take the land without the benefit of a court's judgment regarding the land's value. You're supposed to be legally guaranteed that a court is going to determine the value of your land. Now, under apartheid, of course, from the post-Second World War period into the 90s, well, first of all, the population of blacks under apartheid rose 800%. And birth rates in Africa as a whole, South Africa, among the blacks are very, very high. So it is a challenge when you convert extra wealth into more babies. That is a challenge for economic growth as a whole. But under apartheid, so most of the land was, of course, created, founded, cultivated, and resulted in the ownership by white South Africans. And what they did was, after the regime after the apartheid regime fell in the 90s, well, the ANC said, well, we want to transfer at least 30% of the land to blacks. And they got about 10% transferred, but it is a big problem. And so the majority of the agricultural land is still owned by whites. And this is something that drives people who don't understand the other explanations for disparities of outcome between groups. It drives them nuts. But for the average population, it's not an issue. You understand? If you're living in some urban center in South Africa, whether you're black or white, and there's massive amounts of crime, there's massive amounts of corruption, unemployment is huge, rampant, housing is dilapidated, public services are declining or decaying. And according to a 2016 Institute of Race Relations survey, less than 1% of South Africans think that land ownership is one of the country's, quote, serious unresolved problems. Less than 1% of South Africans think that land ownership is not even the most important, it's just one of the important issues. Unemployment, public services, housing, crime, way higher. So it is an invented issue designed to inflame and race bait and create racial tensions and cause problems, and it is going to be a complete and absolute and total disaster, as we saw before in Zimbabwe, which we'll get to in a moment. And the transfer of land through other mechanisms has been tried many, many, many times before, and no one has ever analyzed as to why it has particularly failed pretty much every time it's been tried. So after apartheid, the South African government bought land and then offered compensation to South Africans, the blacks in particular, whose property they said had been seized after 1913. And they said, well, you can have the land if there's evidence that your land was forcibly seized after 1913, you can have the land back or you can have money. And the vast majority of the blacks said, we don't want the land, we just want the money. Now, of course, the money is probably gone, the land lies fallow, and so on. In the 90s, black South Africans also received grants and subsidies to buy land. And what happened? Well, a lot of overcrowding, poor land use, and the land often ended up lying fallow. Then the government said, oh, we're going to help black citizens buy into large-scale farming. And those who said, great, I'll let the government help me become a massive farmer, well, they ended up in debt and scarcely able to compete. Under President Zuma, the government started buying up land for redistribution. And they did this through leases rather than outright property transfers. Didn't work. And we've seen this before in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was a very rich country relative to the rest of Africa. Robert Mugabe grabbed land in 2000 and grabbed land without compensation. What does that mean? Well, international investors kind of notice when land is being grabbed without compensation because it means your property rights are not secure. Now, investors can invest anywhere. So why would they go to some place where the government can just up and take your stuff? I mean, it's crazy. So what happens is, with the increased uncertainty in the market, you have to have much higher returns to price in that uncertainty. And if you can't get those higher returns, you simply won't invest. So the international investors, the business community, just don't want to do business there. So in Zimbabwe, 4,500 farms, of course they were mostly white-owned, were stolen, ripped out from under people's feet. And they were given to 200,000 black Zimbabwean families. 4,500 farms stolen and given out, redistributed to 200,000 black Zimbabwean families. And it was a mess. It was a mess. So, in the less than 20 years since, out of the 4,500 white commercial farmers, fewer than 300 remain. The coffee and tea business has collapsed. There used to be 500 coffee companies in Zimbabwe. Now, there are 3 left. And, of course, what happened was agricultural production collapsed, which meant that Mugabe had to run to the West, hat in hand, and saying, some mysterious famine is striking my people. Can I get some food aid? And I have huge sympathy for the people there. They don't want this as an issue. It's being pushed by divisive and hateful and racist politicians. But the facts are the facts. Let's just say 15,000 farmers decide to stop farming in South Africa. That's 30 million fewer meals every day. What's going to happen? Now, this, of course, this is a violation. What's going on in South Africa is a violation of Article 17 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I quote, 1, everyone has the right to own property alone as well in association with others. And 2, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. Now, there's a principle, a moral principle, thou shalt not steal, in play here. But there's another principle, too, which is it's nice to be able to eat. 70% of the land that was stolen or transferred or otherwise rejigged and redistributed now lies fallow. 70% of that land now lies fallow. And for a while, the government in South Africa stopped redistributing land because people just sold it back to whites. And there's nothing in a free market system that says that blacks can't get control of land, that they can't buy land. They were given huge amounts of land. I mean, in a free market system, if you can put a resource to better use than a competitor, you tend to be able to buy them after a while. Like if I'm running an apartment building and I'm charging $500 a month per apartment in rent, and you've found a way that you can charge $1,000 a month per apartment in rent, then you can offer to buy me out because you can make more money from the resource. Resources in a free market tend to accumulate to those who can best maximize their productivity. That's the way it works. That's the way it worked in Ukraine when the communists came rolling in and stole all of the farms from the most productive farmers, gave it to everyone else, and food production collapsed. The Holodomor. Millions of people starved to death. Same thing happened in Cambodia when they took all the people from the cities, scattered them out to the countries and said, now be farmers. Starvation, starvation, starvation. Under Chairman Mao, collectivization of farmland resulted in mass starvation where people were literally eating the bark off trees. They were ripping open their pillows and trying to eat the feathers. That is how brutal it was. And once the government seizes land, steals land, in a sense with or without compensation, it's still a violation of property rights. And it's the old saying, your reputation can take a lifetime to build and one moment to destroy. What happens to people's perceptions of the protection of their property? What happens to all the other farmers in South Africa when they look at this massive, giant, bloody crane of the state seizing and ripping people off their ancestral farms? They have a bond with this land that most of us mobile urban dwellers can't comprehend. How far back, how deep it goes, and how much loyalty they have to the farming and to the community and to the people that they feed. The reputation of South Africa and its government can be destroyed like that. And it is in the process of being destroyed. And how long does it take to recover from the destruction of your reputation? A long, long time. So, what's going to happen? Food production is going to collapse. They're going to beg for foreign aid. They're going to beg for food aid. And people are going to flee to Europe. And they are fleeing an entirely man-made disaster. A disaster based upon race baiting, upon a complete misunderstanding of basic economics, on massive hatred, on a lack of understanding of the basic reality that there are intelligence differences between ethnicities. Can't ever judge individuals, but as a whole, when you zoom out to society as a whole, it's a big problem. And here we see rolling out again and again, as we see so often in human history. It was my desperate, desperate hope that the internet was going to allow us or give us the capacity to stop these kinds of problems, to use reason and evidence to prevent these kinds of catastrophes from continually emerging across the human landscape. Throughout history, disasters accumulated without the capacity to stop them because communication technology was still so primitive. And the gatekeepers and those who controlled the free flow of human information and human wisdom too often restrained information from spreading. Now we have this amazing medium where we can talk to each other reasonably and try and solve problems before they accumulate into massive catastrophes. And it has been my desperate hope, lo, these many years, that reason and evidence and knowledge and facts and wisdom can prevent these kinds of catastrophes from occurring. We couldn't stop them in the past. Can we stop them now? I don't know. You can share, you can talk, you can attempt to instruct people in the truth and reality and facts of what is happening on the ground. Or we can be politically correct and we can allow millions of people to descend into starvation and chaos and war and flight. and the dominoes can be set in motion from Africa to the rest of the world. I beg you, please, talk about this stuff with people. Share this information. Let us, for once in human history, strive to solve problems without untold human suffering being our bitter and grim instructor.
Remember back a few years ago when you wanted to sell something? Where could you advertise that product? You had so many media to choose from. There were signboards and newspapers and radio and television. Which one should you pick? Well, thanks to Heartland Newsfeed, those days are over. Let us help you plan a print ad, an online ad, or a radio ad that will target your customer. And the price is based on the type of advertising you want to do, the size of the print ad, or the length of the radio spot. Or you can choose all three. And our prices are considerably more affordable than the competition. And best of all, we guarantee satisfaction. If you don't like your ad, we'll do it over for you. We want you to be satisfied with what we do, so you'll let us plan your advertising over and over. So, call Heartland Newsfeed today at 1-866-285-4117. That's 1-866-285-4117. It's a new type of advertising for a brand new century.